I had my children on the floor. I was on my favourite blanket that my grandmother gave me on the floor like a cat.
And I realised in that moment the potential of what our bodies can really do as women.
Like I could feel his head, I could do my own internal, like, yeah, his head, I could feel it.
I was in tears, I was just in tears and overwhelmed with gratitude.
Hi, and welcome to the Natural Birth Podcast, the podcast that is bringing embodied birth wisdom from women from all over the world, sharing their natural birth stories. Don't forget to subscribe and download so that you can always have access to these empowering and positive natural birth stories. Hi, my name is Anna, and I am the Natural Birth Podcast host. I'm a former midwife who left the system, and I'm now the proud founder of Sacred Birth International, a woman-owned company with a mission to revolutionize the birth world and bring focus to the sacred and the natural intelligence of the birth process. We do this by providing world-class education, courses, programs, and coaching to equip women with the knowledge and the tools to have conscious pregnancies, empowering and positive birth experiences, and the most nourishing start possible for themselves and their babies postpartum. We also educate and mentor aspiring birth workers into sacred space holders and physiological birth advocates in the Sacred Birth Worker Mentorship, the Beyond a Doula training. If you'd like to work with me or take any of our courses, programs, or the mentorship, then head on over to sacredbirthinternational.com to find out more. Hi, Victoria, and welcome to the Natural Birth Podcast. How are you?
I'm doing amazing today. How are you?
I'm good. I'm very excited to hear about your kind of surprise breech home birth. I mean, I love having women on sharing their breech stories, but it's even more exciting to hear about an undiagnosed one, like so a surprise one. And yeah, it's just so important that we talk about breech as a normal variation of a normal variation of normal. Yes, a variation of normal. So yeah, I can't wait to hear your story. So wherever you want to take us, Victoria, if you want to take us back to conception, how you decided to have a home birth. I mean, I'd love to hear your whole story. So wherever you want to start, please take us back.
Sure, sure. Um, well, I'm quite tickled as I think about this now because our family and friends were really, really surprised because growing up, I'm a very nurturing person, nurturing archetype, so I would care for animals and pets, just love them. And then I went into counseling, so I like to nurture people and encourage them. So I remember my parents would say, "You'd make such a great mom." And my response was, "I love the idea, but I'm like scared of the world." That was just like my response. Like I love the idea, but I think I would say if this is the 80s, I'd do it, but it's not. So it surprised everyone. So my um, my husband and I, it's neither one of our first marriages. So my journey then continued as a stepmom. So he has two daughters from his prior marriage, and I call myself a bonus mom. So they're my bonus children. So after we met 6 months into the pandemic on an app. So yeah. And we joke about it because wherever we go, people go, we're both freakishly tall. Okay, he's 6'8", I'm 6'3". People are like, "You guys are so tall. How did you meet?" And look, God brought us together, okay? He's a man of God. That was so important to me, to have somebody that's spiritually the same as me. And we just connected so beautifully. And so we had actually, had those serious talks, of course, quite at the beginning of our dating journey, our relationship, because we got into a relationship quickly. he asked me, "Do you want to have a child of your own?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm cool." But yeah, right? I was like all set up to be the bonus mom, to his beautiful daughters. And about a year after we got married, I just had the strongest, like the desire was always in me, but it was able to come out. I felt safe enough for it to come out. And I was like, one day, I was like, I have to tell him. Like, I know that we basically said we weren't going to have children, but I have to tell him. So I made him this huge rye loaf of bread. And I'm in the kitchen making this thing, and he's like, okay. And so he had some, and he's like, oh, it's so delicious. I'm like, I have to tell you something. I was like, I want to have a child with you. And he was like, whoa. I'm like, I know, it's a lot, it's a lot. But he was like, okay, let's do it. And I was so excited. I was like, oh my God, yay. Because I was like, he might say no, and I respect that because that's what we had talked about. Um, but I thought that was just so amazing. So Spencer, our son, he was ready to come through. It was the first time he came through, like, and it was so funny because I knew I was pregnant before I even took the test. I just knew it. And I took the test immediately, like as soon as you could take it. And I went to the store and I got baby boots. And so he came home from work and I just brought out the baby shoes and I'm like, we're going to be parents. And he was like, whoa, he was completely floored. He had to lay down on the bed and he was laughing for like 30 minutes because he was just like, whoa, this is happening so fast. But it was so exciting. I'm from Ireland, so my parents they spend the summers in Ireland. So they were in Ireland. So we didn't we immediately notified everyone. We video called my parents. I'll never forget the look on their faces. They were like, "What?" When we announced the pregnancy, and then we went and visited. His parents live locally, so we went and visited them and told them, and it was just so exciting. We told my bonus daughters only a few weeks later. I mean, it was very exciting. So I really enjoyed being pregnant. I felt very I felt the fierce protection of him. Um, I knew he was a boy, and I wasn't afraid to say that I knew he was a boy and I wanted a boy. I was very pointed in that, and I didn't care who heard me. I said it. Um, and we did with the blood tests, we did opt to find out. And the results came back on my birthday, in September, and it said it was a boy. We were outside, and I just like shrieked. And Sean was like laughing because he's like, "Oh my gosh, I've never heard you make that noise before." And I was like, "I'm just so excited. He's a boy, just like I thought he would be." So that's uh, that's the beginning. Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful. What a beautiful story so far. How magical. It was just
Yes.
you wanted to come through and when you were ready. I love that you said that you had that desire when you felt safe.
Hmm.
I love,
Yeah.
and it's so true, that um that deep sense of safety. I heard that with many women who become pregnant once they finally got a house or, when they actually got married or like it's interesting how things can block before that drops.
Yeah. Yeah. My yeah. With my first marriage, he didn't want to be a father, and I kind of had the idea of fostering, and he didn't want to go that route, and I respected that. But it just, like you said, it just was so natural, and it was me recognizing that it was, I think, the deepest desire that I actually had as a human,
Yeah.
and it didn't come out until I was 35.
Yeah, and settle with a man who also
Hmm.
wanted to be a father. Yeah.
Right. And I could see him. in his father
Mm.
role, and I think directly witnessing that, and then, me as a bonus mom, you're taking care of children that you didn't birth yourself. But when I was younger, I did a lot of nannying and babysitting, so I know how to be around kids and things like that. So I didn't waste any time. I knew I wanted to go the midwife route. I had gone to a couple OBs just for, I guess, like routine women's care, in my 20s. And I never had a good experience. And it was never in my mind that I wanted to have OB care during my pregnancy. I didn't think about it at all. I was just like, I'm going to do the midwife. And my first interview, I just loved her. So Sean was with me for that first meeting too. And I was very thankful that he was on board with that and he didn't question it. He was just like, that's what you want to do, that's what we're going to do. And I wanted a water home birth from the start. I didn't consider anything else. It was just an automatic boom. That's what I want in my head. So we just got right to it.
That is so fascinating. How come that's um what you wanted? Had you had people around you or your mom, or how were you influenced to even know about water birth? Like, where did that come from?
That is a good question. I remember asking my mom about my birth when I was like 8 or 9 years old, and then again in my 20s. She got to the hospital with me like 15 minutes before I came out, but she just said, "Oh, I just remember you guys were like crying in the hospital, all the lights, all the stuff, and then when you got home, you were very quiet." And I knew that I wanted to be in a space where I knew who was there. I wanted to be settled. I didn't want like a random person opening the door, and then I knew that that would just make me close up. So I love the water, so that's probably the intrigue behind the water birth desire. I just like the idea of the baby going into the water, then coming up from there.
The gentle transition. Now, I'm just
Mhm.
curious, just because, of course, for most women, if you have that desire, someone in your maybe your family, your friends, or you have this, birth nerd, so you've been like, stalking Instagram accounts like mine, or you've listened to podcasts, or there's some kind of influence that makes you even aware of there's home birth midwives, you can birth in water. And that's what I was curious about, like just how that came to you. But maybe you don't know, maybe it was just there.
Yeah, I can't pinpoint, but I know that my grandmas, I mean, they all had home births with midwives. I mean, so that maybe was
Yeah.
a an
Yeah.
influence there. Hmm.
It wasn't too far away. I mean, my grandmother and great grandmother both birth on my mom's side, birth in hospital. My grandmother birthed in hospital, but her mother had home births. But yeah, it's like two or three generations, maybe even, three or four that home birthed for many
Hmm.
today.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, so your pregnancy was good and you knew you were going to have this home birth. And how come you didn't know it was breech? I'm really curious about this fact. Did you do ultrasounds or did you opt out of that?
I did do the 8-week ultrasound, and then I did do the anatomy 20-week ultrasound. Um, After that, I did not. So I do remember a sensation under my right ribs, kind of at the bottom there, the last like 10 days. So that was his head. Um, so I suspect that he actually flipped those last 2 weeks, to be honest with you. That's my suspicion.
Right. And your midwife, did she usually palpate your tummy when you saw her and kind of see where the baby was lying or?
Yes. Yeah. She did. Yep.
But maybe she missed it. I mean, that's the thing, it's not always very, that easy to feel, and every woman carries differently, and
Mm-hmm.
some are really obvious to feel that, oh, here's the head, here's the bum, it's lying like this with the back, and some are trickier to say
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
with you, obviously, that was missed. So planning a home birth, planning a water birth, do you want to take us into the birth story now?
Oh, sure. Um, there's so many funny elements to this, so many surprises. One of them is the water piece. I so dreamed of that, and I harassed my husband, and we went to 8 different hardware stores to get the proper tubing and make sure everything was gonna work. Then didn't end up getting in the water, and that's because, and I agreed with this made sense to me the way that she does it, but my midwife holds onto the tub and she brings it with her when she arrives to home births because, the partner is helping, that way it's not taking the partner away from, you, and she does the setup and everything. But the water piece didn't happen, but in hindsight, it'll make sense as I go through the story. It'll make sense that we didn't do that, well, because of uh, the presentation, and I made peace with it at a certain point. Okay, so on Good Friday, wait, Thursday night, before Easter, okay, I had been going to bed, pretty early, as most pregnant women would, because you're tired and all of that. But Thursday night, I had this surge of energy, so I was up till midnight doing who knows what. I can't even remember. And then 4 a.m., I had like a Hollywood style, my water broke, okay? Yeah. It was like it made the sound of, how if you bounce like a rubber ball on, on the ground. So not quite a pop, but it made like that sound. And then lots came out, and I like ran to the bathroom. It got all over the bathroom floor. And then I told my husband, I was like, my water just broke. He was like, ooh, that's so exciting. I said, I know, just go back to sleep. We're gonna go back to sleep. I said, first I have to make a call though, because there's certain reasons, or certain, that was one of the things that my midwife was like, call me, if your water breaks, call me. So I didn't want to call her at 4 in the morning, but I wanted to follow her rules. So I called her, and she said, okay, okay. She said, was it clear? I said, yes, it was clear. She said, okay, thanks for letting me know. Keep me updated today. I said, no problem.
So just for anyone listening, I think her reasoning to wanting you to call her is just because she wants to ask you questions about the water that broke. Just as a midwife brain, my midwife brain goes like, I understand her. I mean, it's not acute, really. She could have said, oh, if your water's breaking in the night, call me first thing in the morning. But I can understand her reasoning, like knowing, oh, is there meconium maybe in the water, or, other questions that she might want to ask you about water's breaking, or telling you
Right.
what to look for or whatever. Hmm.
Mhm. Right. So Sean, my husband, said, I'm not going to go into work today. And I was happy about that. I wanted to spend time with him. Again, he could have, but we wanted that time together, so I appreciated that. So well, I was leaking quite a bit, so I had gotten one package of Depends as part of the brisket. We're gonna need more of these things. So we started our day going to a nearby grocery store and getting another pack of those because I knew I was going to be putting a new one on every hour, and I was going to go through this pack quick. So we did that, and then I remember thinking, I don't want to be in public. Get me out of this grocery store. I want to be home. Because we had talked about going somewhere for lunch. And maybe I would have if I wasn't leaking. So he went and, got takeout for us and brought it home. And so we enjoyed delicious food and we early labor or whatever we want to call it. I don't necessarily want to label it, but that started in the afternoon. I was kind of wondering when I would start having some sensations. That started in the afternoon, and we just enjoyed each other's company. Around 5 p.m., we went for a really long walk. So that was probably that would have been my opportunity to rest, but I decided not to do that. I wanted to be with him and I wanted to just keep doing things. So we went on a really long walk and then we got back from that and he got us some more tasty food. We watched a funny movie and then at 8 p.m. it started to ramp up quite a bit. So I updated my midwife and she suggested that I try and lay down and rest. I kind of knew I had missed my opportunity on that, but I still laid down. And then around 10 p.m., my legs started shaking quite significantly. Yeah. And I was like, whoa, okay. I haven't had this before in my life. This is really interesting. So my legs were shaking and maybe for 30 minutes, something like that. And then I had gone into the bedroom. I was by myself at that time. I was okay being by myself for a little while. And then I came out and my husband was in the living room and I kind of got on my hands and knees and I was leaning on the couch and he witnessed, they were getting more strong at that point and he started doing the contraction timer app. And he sent some screenshots to the midwife. And then at that point, I couldn't, text or do phone calls or even attempt to try and do anything on my phone. So around that continued, and around 1 a.m., we had done a bunch of affirmations, and I had told him, what's going to be helpful for me to hear. And I said, I looked at him, I go, now's the time. I'm ready for that encouragement. Give me some juice. And he's like, because he was just observing me and watching me and just, and he's like, yeah, you can do this. I was like, okay, thank you, yes. And he made me coconut water and cranberry juice and a little orange juice to keep me hydrated, which was really nice. That definitely helped. At 1 a.m., he suggested, let's call the birth team. I had a doula and midwife, and he said, let's call him in. I said, give me another hour. Well, we probably should have called him in at 1 a.m., but I, as many women have said before, I did not want to call them too soon. So I wanted to be sure that I was really in the thick of it when I called them. Okay, at 3 a.m., I said, yeah. I said, call the doula. The doula, she was ready. We had tipped her off uh, the day before, or yeah, we had tipped her off. And so she had her bags packed. She was ready to come over. She was there at 3:30. I remember her walking in the door and thinking, yeah, I'm glad you're here. This is a good time for you to be here. So as we had planned, she took over and then my husband went to go rest because I wanted him to be really, bright and rested for the birth so we could enjoy it together. So he went upstairs and immediately passed out on the couch upstairs in the loft room. And my doula, Kathy, she, whew, she really helped me. Um, I I was close to transition, I suspect, at that point when she arrived. She had She gave me a comb and encouraged me to hold that, and she was like, "Oh, yeah." After a couple of those, she's like, "I could tell you're way past that point. That's for earlier in your labor." And I definitely I went into a transient state. I just remember I had my eyes open the whole time. I didn't close my eyes like a lot of women do. I had my eyes open, but I just remember it was dark, okay, because it's 4 in the morning. But I just remember seeing stars and feeling very raw. And yeah, I remember thinking to myself, I think this is what they call ego death. It's hard to put into words, but I was definitely seeing stars and in a state that I've never been in my life. One of my affirmations was, he's in a great position. Isn't that funny?
But he was though, wasn't he? For
Yeah,
him, right? So
yes.
most breech babies, well, all breech babies are in breech for a reason, whether or not we think it's good or bad. It's either they want that for their birth imprint, maybe their cord is short, they want to be close to your heart. I mean, there's so many different reasons why a baby would be breech, right? And it's perfect for them.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you. Uh, so I, at that point, I wanted Courtney, my midwife, to be there. I knew she had to be there. So I couldn't, I just said, is Courtney coming? Because I knew that Kathy had Courtney's number. So even though my husband had called her a few hours earlier, um, I was like thinking to myself, why isn't she here? And I'll tell you why. There was, we figured it out the next day, but for some reason, Sean's phone and Courtney's phone were not communicating. Yeah, it was really weird. Yeah, it was really weird. So the texts and probably the phone calls that Sean had done to Courtney 3 hours earlier never went through. But when Kathy reached out to her at that point, it was 5:30. She got that. And it was Kathy taking a picture of his feet out of me.
What? Oh my Lord. Oh my God. So you're there with your doula and the feet are coming out. Oh my God. No, no, no. Okay. Wind back. Like I have to hear more. I have to hear like that experience for you. Like, so obviously you must have felt something come out or she saw that and tell me more.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I'm going to. I'm going to. All right. So I c- I was vocalizing very loudly. And I remember telling Kathy, I said, Kathy, how is Sean not waking up right now? Like I'm being loud. She's like, huh? Continue. I'm like, all right, I will. We don't need to get him yet. Just let him rest. I could hear a shift in my vocals. I sounded like a possessed lioness. I was like, ugh, ugh. I'm like, wow, I'm making that noise automatically. So my body switched to pushing on its own. The vocals came with it. And I felt when he started to come through my open cervix too, I felt the change, and it happened in 1 second. And after it wasn't long, it was a few minutes of that, I could feel, I just knew some of his body was outside of me. I knew it. I didn't reach down to feel it, but I just knew it was out, you know? I didn't know she had taken that picture, um, but because she didn't want to freak me out.
Yeah. So what position are you in? Are you on all fours or something?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, I can
All
imagine.
fours.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's curious, with breech, because it's not a head, right? You don't have that head putting pressure on the cervix opening fully, and then the head going down. You can open the cervix just a little bit because the feet can fit right through, right?
Hmm.
And all of that. Yeah, it's a totally different birth experience. Oh my God, I'm so excited. Tell me more.
Yes. So Courtney got that picture, and she also called her so she could hear my vocals. When she heard my vocals, she was like, mm-hmm. She she had her bags packed. She told me this afterwards, obviously. She grabbed her bags and ran through every single stoplight and stop sign to get to our house. She booked it here. And so meanwhile, I'm sure Kathy's like, oh God. I asked her, I was like, it, some of him is out, and she said, oh, it's just stuff. She's probably like, oh my gosh. And I just kept doing my thing, and I'm like, okay, Courtney's on her way. It's okay. One of my affirmations was God is with us. I started saying that. I said a prayer. I said a prayer. I said, say a prayer. Yes. And then I heard her, oh, while she was on her way over, Kathy encouraged me to try to slow down the process. Right. Yep. No.
Did she tell you to like put your bum up and head down? Did she instruct you into a position for that?
I did not change positions.
No.
No. She told me, pretend like you're breathing through a straw.
Yeah, yeah, nah. Yeah, you can't tell a
So,
woman who's pushing that. If you want to slow things down, just for anyone listening, and if this ever happens to you again, I mean, having your bum up in the air and your head down, that position can help slow things down. But at the same time, you're not stopping that baby. You just, no.
mm-mm. It was already partially out anyway, but I just, yeah, I remember that vividly. I'd be like, ooh, and she was like, ah. I'm like, I can't help it. It's just happening. And I knew Courtney was on her way, so I felt settled in a way. I heard the door open. She came in. She came in the room. Kathy went up and grabbed Sean. He was still asleep. So he had been asleep for 3 hours. She was
Isn't that
like,
so funny though? Like men, they can sleep through anything,
yeah.
right?
She was like, the baby's coming and he's breached. Come downstairs. So he got up, came down, and my midwife had a local OB medical student with her, which I'm glad because she got to witness it too. And this is going to impact her practice, right? So everybody was there for a reason. It's very clear to me. So Courtney comes in the room and she goes, your baby's breech. Do you want to have him here or do you want to go to the nearby hospital for a C-section? And without any hesitation, I said, oh, I'm having him here. I knew there wasn't, I didn't want, I always said from the beginning, I don't want a C-section. I don't want to go to the hospital. And I knew I wouldn't have time anyway, even if I wanted to, but I didn't want to. So he was coming. The med student got a video. It's 3 minutes long, and Breach Without Borders has it in their library now. Yeah, because it's like, so he was the complete breech position. So, of course, I Googled it afterwards. What percentage of breaches are complete? It's the rarest presentation. And so it's almost like you're in child's pose, or like kneeling on the floor, but the feet are crossed at the ankles. So when his feet were out, you could see it was just right above his ankles, so you could see his feet crossed. And so there's a picture of that. Um,
Little Buddha baby.
yes, yes, it was like a little Buddha, exactly. And so on the video, you can see my midwife didn't touch or do anything. She just observed and she was ready if needed to, but she didn't touch at all. Uh, and you could see I'm going back and forth and swaying back and forth just a little bit, kind of wiggling. And I am talking. And I remember making a conscious decision to speak. I remember thinking I could just vocalize, I could breathe, I could do my thing that way, but I want to talk. I want to flex a little bit here. Like I want to show out a little bit. I don't know. So, and I was louder because I want to do this for all women. I had this kind of, theme that a lot of women talk about on this podcast, but I did. I thought about times where I had been subconsciously, maybe squelched, my voice was squelched. So I just really wanted to let it go. And I did. And so I was like, it burns like I'm. And she goes, "Oh, these church ladies, they curse." And so we all laughed. So then his legs come out, and then this all happened very quickly within just a few couple minutes and a few contractions. His legs came out, so right above his hips, and then he moved his legs, he flexed them up and down. And she said, "You can reach down, you can touch him." So I touched his feet, and you could hear me laughing with delight. And then I said, "I need a breather. I need a breather. I feel like I haven't taken a complete breath in hours and hours and hours because before I started, sorry, I'm backtracking just a hair for a second. Before I started pushing, um, it was it was incredibly intense for a few hours. And I believe that was because of his position. So I was so glad and so grateful that I was through that intense part, and this felt much better. And so I really wanted to savor that. So I said, let me take a breath. So I took a couple deep breaths, and then the rest of him came right out. No, no worries, no issues, no. People think that breech babies get their heads stuck and all this stuff. I felt him rotate, and I said it I said, I felt him turn. They were like, "Yay, that's great." And then he came out, and then she just handed him to me between my legs, and I sat back down on the bed with him. Yeah. So he did not cry. I gave him a breath, and then I handed him to my midwife, and I said, "Give him um, some breaths with I don't know the term of the
Like a little
thing."
meal puff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we did that, and then handed him back to me, and I didn't say anything. I was very, very quiet. I just stared at him. Um, and I was just in a complete cloud. I didn't say anything. I didn't emote anything. I just stared at him.
Do you remember what you were feeling? What was going through your body, mind, and soul at that moment?
The most, just all those years of that deep desire in me, and now it had come to fruition. Yeah, that's the best way I can put it into words. I can't even put it into words. It was that deep, and I did not feel like I was in my body at all. I'm pretty sure my mouth was hanging open for I don't know how long. I was just like,
Mm. Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. And she said that, so my midwife, turns out she is a breech specialist. So 25% of her babies that she's around are breech. She does a lot of CrossFit moms go to her, a lot of like super fit horse riders go to her that have really, really tight abs. That's one of the reasons a baby can be breech.
Yeah.
Have,
Yeah,
I was,
they navigate the pelvic floor and and of course the womb, and the
hmm
space that we hold for them
hmm
to come out, don't they? Yes,
yeah,
that can definitely be a reason. Hmm.
yeah. So she said that if a baby is breech, she does not do have the mom go in water. So it's just as well that I didn't have the birth pool set up.
That's curious because I had this woman on who has had, I can't remember now if she's had one or two breech babies, but she actually traveled to a midwife in a different state who was kind of famous for breeches, and she always had her women birth in pools in
hmm
water. So it's interesting how everyone has their different, you know, preference because it's a preference, right? And it's like how you are most comfortable. And obviously, that's really important if you want to have a skilled midwife who knows what she's doing. You want to listen to how she's most comfortable and prepared to care for that baby. And yes, like most head down babies, most breech babies will just slip on out, just like your little baby boy did, no problems at all. But if there is one, then obviously a midwife who's skilled knows what to do, right? She knows how to help that head if it does seem to get stuck and stuff like that, right?
And if that weird debacle didn't happen between my husband's phone and her phone, or if I had happened to make that call before I wasn't fully, done with my phone, probably would have. But you know what? Coulda, woulda, shoulda. Can't do anything about it. I'm at peace with it.
Oh, yeah,
After Kathy came, she actually asked if I wanted to get in the shower, but I was way beyond the point of being able to do that.
to move.
Yeah, yeah. And she realized that after the fact, but
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
it's
you'd found
okay.
your position. You'd found your position. You were settled. You had, your way of coping, and you don't want to move
Yeah.
a woman when she's in the zone. Then she's in
Right.
the zone.
hmm And I had suspected, I was like, I wonder if I'm going to be nauseous during labor because you hear sometimes women get nauseous. So I had gotten some wintergreen oil just in case I needed to smell that. No, I wasn't nauseous at all. So, and
Mm.
I have a lot of salt lamps. I have like 12 salt lamps. So I wanted all the salt lamps to be around in my bedroom. And I forgot to put them up the night before. So, but bless my husband's heart, I realized this, when things started to ramp up, and he grabbed some from the closet and did turn some on, which was really nice.
Nice.
And I had the birth playlist, but we didn't do that, and it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. It's lovely to plan all those things. At the end of the day, you might or might not use it. You might or might not need it. It's nice to just have
Mhm.
those things in case you want it, but it's not like it's your birth experience hangs on it, right? That, oh no, I
Mhm.
didn't get to use all the props and things I planned. But yeah,
Mhm.
wow, what a beautiful, amazing story. So she actually does breech home births then
Yes.
in the state of what, Ohio? Is that where you were?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, that's good to know because it's so different in every state, right? Some states it's illegal to do home birth breech and
Mhm.
all these things. So that's good to know for anyone listening that there's a midwife
Yes.
there who's very confident in doing breeches.
And I am so grateful. Again, all this stuff makes sense after the fact. I'm so grateful that I didn't know he was breech at the end
Mm.
because that would have scared me. I know myself that would have scared me.
Yeah,
And if I had told my family that, I think there would have been strong encouragement of not doing the home birth anymore.
sure.
And so I really did not want to get a C-section. So I am so grateful that I didn't know. And I think
Yeah.
it was supposed to be that way.
Absolutely, of course. It sounds like there was divine intervention all the way through.
Yeah.
Your husband did wake up to see the baby born.
Oh, yes, yes. And Kathy, our doula, she is a pastor here. And so she told us, we booked her in December. I immediately booked my midwife right at the beginning of, you got connected with her at the beginning of pregnancy. The doula, I interviewed 8 doulas, okay, in November, many. And there was 2 I really liked. And then Sean and I agreed on Kathy. She is a pastor. So I said, okay, you're on call. I said, tell me, is there a time and a day where you can't? She was doing Easter service. So she said, I got you except for 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. on Easter morning. And I was due March 27th. So I knew I had a feeling he was going to come right at the end of March, maybe April 1st, maybe April 2nd. So Easter was March 31st. But I was like, we're going to be cool. I just know we're going to be okay. Those 3 hours, I'm not going to be in the thick of it. He came the day before,
Yeah,
right? So Saturday morning, 7:02 a.m. is when he was born. So she was able to do her Easter service the next day, no problem. I wanted her. I didn't want her backup.
of
Of
course.
course, because we had many meetings together when I was pregnant and drew up all the plans and everything.
Mm.
But during that intense time, I held her hand and I was gripping it. And I go, am I holding it too hard? She's like, no, 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 you're good. You're good. She says, I'm going to grab you a glass of water. I like, don't leave the room. She ran and grabbed a glass of water and she wanted me to stay hydrated, during those intense few hours.
Mm.
But yes, they called, like you said, when Courtney arrived, they called Sean down, and so he stood. I was on all fours on the bed, so he stood right where my head is, and then the ladies are in the back. But then he got to see the video thereafter. But it was great. I remember what he was saying, and he was very encouraging to me. He's like, "We're almost there." And I could hear people's voices, but I just was so focused and
Yeah,
hmm
beautiful. So,
hmm
Victoria, if you had a first-time mama in front of you right now who's about to have her first baby and she really wants to have a natural and empowering birth experience, what advice and pearls of wisdom would you give to her?
Yeah. Throughout life, we we experience life-changing events. A friend could die, family members dying, just all these crazy things, all these wild things that we experience in life. A woman giving birth to a baby, certainly one of them. So this is an opportunity for you to really, you'll see that you can go beyond the limits that you think you can go. So it's one of the most empowering experiences that a human being can go through, a woman can go through an experience. And I would advise you to do a journal. I did a pregnancy journal, and I'm so glad I did. I journaled my birth story. I wrote it down a couple days afterwards, and I'm going to share it with my friend. She shares her birth story with her children every year on their birthday, and I think that's really special. So I have that written down, and I will share that with him. And I think just there's challenging parts of it, but again, it just shows you that the human spirit is extremely strong. It's really unbreakable. Uh, and that there's so much meaning and there's so much meaning that we get with these life-altering events in our lives. And this is just one of them.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Victoria, for
Yeah,
sharing your beautiful birth story. So special to
thank
have a
you.
breech birth story that Yeah, it's so empowering to hear.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you for listening. If you love this podcast, then please consider sharing it, leave a review, or make a contribution on our Patreon page. And if you want to connect on social media, then find the podcast on Instagram as The Natural Birth Podcast. Thank you for listening.